We are always very anxious to improve our circumstances, but not so anxious to improve ourselves. This is your dose of daily wisdom. I won't keep you long. We are continuing the reading of As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. We're on chapter 2, and we're picking up where we left off on Friday. James Allen was saying, men are anxious to improve their circumstances, but are unwilling to improve themselves. They therefore remain bound. The man who does not shrink from self-crucifixion can never fail to accomplish the object upon which his heart is set. That's a very harsh way to say. Somebody who isn't afraid of getting uncomfortable, pain, the pain of growth, doing things when they don't feel like it, that person who isn't afraid of pain is inevitably going to succeed because it's easy to not want to go through the discomfort or go through the pain. I sure don't. And my results really showed that throughout my life, pretty much almost for 30 years. I did not want to get uncomfortable. I was a hard worker and I was willing to do it all. But I was spinning my wheels and spinning my wheels, but nothing was really changing. I wasn't seeing the results that I knew I could get until I shifted my mindset. And it's books like these that really helped me to do that. So it's true of to not shrink from pain. We can't fail to accomplish. So if we don't shrink from pain, we cannot fail to accomplish that which we desire. This is as true of earthly as of heavenly things. Even the man whose sole object is to acquire wealth must be prepared to make great personal sacrifices before he can accomplish his object. And the word sacrifice, I always like to preface, because when I heard that word sacrifice, I was like, oh, that sounds so religious and like we have to suffer and oh, I'm not into all that. But really, what the best definition of what it means to sacrifice means giving something up of a lower value so that something of a higher value can be placed therein. So it's not really going without, it's just making space. I mean, we are for a moment going without this thing, but it's of a lesser value. But until we get rid of it, can the new thing come in? That's why there's such talk about, energy, feng shui in a room, the whole Marie Kondo of cleaning out your closet. To clean out your closet, it's nature abhors a vacuum. It's gonna fill it back in with something always. Nature abhors a vacuum means it doesn't like anything to be empty. There's no empty space. It's always filling with something. So if you take something out, it's going to fill in automatically with something. That's why it's so important when you have habits. When people say, oh, I'm going to quit smoking, you must replace it with another habit, because if you don't, it's going to sit empty there and that smoking's going to come right back. So sacrificing smoking, for example, for something of a higher value, because smoking was something of a lesser value. Drinking tea, I don't know, going for a walk, whatever it is, but I must replace whatever is of a lower value so that something of a higher value can come in. I've heard many metaphors. For example, if we imagined we were a storehouse, a storage house, and we dream all of these things and all these miracles we want to let our dreams in. We know we can do it, but our storehouse is full of the past, our fears, our worries, our doubts, all the stuff we have that we've accumulated. But until we release it, it could be a releasing of old relationships, of old habits, of old people, so that the new can come in. Because when, say, just metaphorically, there was some angel or our higher selves doling out and we finally found Carla's storage house. Oh, it's full. Oh, I guess we'll have to wait until she releases it. That's why I've been through the 12 steps. I'm sober now, thank God. But I used to use alcohol to cope. But it was because I held so tightly onto that addiction, because in the short term, yeah, it relieved my anxiety, but it made it worse. It's like pouring gasoline on the fire. But until I got rid of that, and a lot of people experience this once you get sober or stop using a drug or a substance or something that is harmful. All these miracles start happening. In the 12 steps, they call them the promises. The promises never fail. They always come when you release that addictive habit all of these things start flooding into your life. Things just start clicking and opportunities start coming and your synchronicities. You're like, oh my God, this is crazy. But it could have never came unless you let go of that. So that was a long rant about sacrifice. So change your perspective, your perception. Let's reframe what sacrifice means. It doesn't mean suffering or pain. It means giving up something of a lesser value to make room for something of a higher value. And that sure sounds a lot better to me. So it says somebody who sole object is just to get wealthy, they're going to have to make personal sacrifices and to accomplish that object. And how much more so he would realize a strong and well-poised life. Here, okay, so this is the example we used last week. I read this and I'm rereading it again because it's so good. Here is a man who is wretchedly poor. He is extremely anxious that his surroundings and home comforts should be improved. Yet all the time he shrinks his work and considers he is justified in trying to deceive his employer on the ground of the insufficiency of his wages. Such a man does not understand the simplest rudiments of those principles, pardon me, just spit, which are the basis of true prosperity, is not only totally unfitted to rise out of his wretchedness, but is actually attracting to himself a still deeper wretchedness by dwelling in and acting out indolent, deceptive, and unmanly thoughts. I love this example. This was me. I wanted my situations to improve. I thought I deserved better. I knew I could have better. Okay, all of that's right. But what did I do? I wanted to take shortcuts. I wanted to run away. I wanted to quit. I wanted to take a little bit. I used to work in a restaurant. And if you've worked in a restaurant or even just in an office, like there's paper clips or if there's like food in the restaurant, you know, taking from the restaurant, it's like, oh, everybody does it. We just eat all the bread. We eat all the, you know, we just steal food, like take food home, grab. I remember there was this girl. We used to walk in, and I used to work for a really nice restaurant. Good food, great produce, really, really good. Beverly Hills, baby, in Beverly Hills. Really nice. And I remember we were walking out and she just took an avocado and just put it in her purse. And I was like, what are you doing? She's like, they don't care. Like, it's just that attitude of like, I'm owed this. I work here. They pay me like crap. Of course I deserve this. But that's stealing. But that mentality permeates. And I was a victim to it too, because once you surround yourself, you think it's okay. It's like, okay, it's not a big deal. But when I first started, it's like, oh my God, that's stealing. Because it is. But being surrounded by people who did it all the time, it just became normalized. And that goes into the whole thing of Think and Grow Rich. Napoleon Hill talks a lot about your subconscious mind, the beliefs you have. It doesn't matter if they're true or not. If you are surrounding yourself with thoughts, actions, patterns, ways of being, and attitudes, you are going to start acting like that. We think we're strong. If you put yourself in a room of people who were angry, bitter, critical, judgmental, gossiped all the time, maybe you're in one now. It's extremely taxing. Maybe for a week or two, you can be like, nope, not me. But after time, it gets so heavy and draining because you're outnumbered. You're outnumbered. You're better just leaving the situation because you're going to be dragged down. No matter how. This is what happens when prisoners of war. You think you're not the one. The military, the mind training, psychological mind training, they are literally trained for that. But when they get taken, there's been studies on this. They are brainwashed. They are just pumped in with the rhetoric and the agenda of the other side. And they give in. You give in because your mind is susceptible. Your subconscious cannot reject what is repeated to it over and over and over. That goes into the soil, right? Our drawing here of the mind. This is the mind, conscious thinking, subconscious feeling. This is the subconscious subjective mind, the soil. It cannot reject. It takes whatever you put in it, whatever thoughts you repeat over and over and over and over and over. It's how we learn when we're younger. And this is a really great drawing that I show my clients, especially parents. This is really worth it, so stick with me here. Stick with me. Where's my marker? Here we go. Okay, so for the first I want you to think of yourself. For the first 8-ish years of your life, you were just straight up a walking, open, raw, subconscious mind. Your soil was exposed. You didn't have this top part. Here, we have that top part, the thinking conscious mind. But when we're growing up, we don't have that. It grows our ability to reason, to think for ourselves, to decipher. That's why kids are so impressionable. That's why they get taken advantage of. The kids truly are the only victims because they have no ability to reject. They don't have the filter that we have as adults. So think about this. This is 0 to 8-ish. Your kids, their heart of hearts is just open, their subconscious mind. But also, we could say, oh my God, Carl, that's terrible. I was like in a really bad environment. Yeah. What did you see? What did you hear? What did you smell, taste, touch? What TV shows were on? What music did you listen to? What church did you go to? What messages were you given? Because once you grow up, you grow that conscious thinking mind now, but it's down in the dungeon. This is what we call paradigms. This is what we call programming. But you can change it through repetition. That's why study is so important. Okay. So this is also how we learn languages. This is also how we come to believe what we believe deep in our hearts. Did you choose the language that you chose? What about home cooked food? What about comfort food? It's probably what you grew up with, what you surrounded yourself with, and it doesn't matter. So I hope that was helpful. Okay, that was just let me read this last paragraph. Okay, so he was talking about the man who wanted better things for his life, but he didn't want to work. He wanted to take shortcuts. He had a bad attitude, basically. He thought it was owed to him. He was right in wanting good things and that he deserved it, absolutely. But the way he went about it, he had a very bad attitude of entitlement instead of gratitude, grateful for what he had. So then James Allen says, here is a rich man who is the victim of a painful and persistent disease as the result of gluttony. He is willing to give large sums of money to get rid of it, but he will not sacrifice his gluttonous desires. He wants to gratify his taste for rich and unnatural viands and have his health as wealth. Ooh. Such a man is totally unfit to have health because he has not yet learned the first principles of a healthy life. Here is an employer of laborer who adopts crooked measures to avoid paying the regulation wage and, in the hope of making larger profits, reduces the wages of his workpeople. Such a man is altogether unfitted for prosperity, and when he finds himself bankrupt, both as regards and reputation and riches, he blames circumstances, not knowing that he is the sole author of his conditions. And then he goes on to talk about the cases, which we'll continue with tomorrow. But this is what happens when poo-poo hits the fan in our life, when things aren't going right, we don't take responsibility and we blame outside circumstances. We let our emotions dictate. We are a victim to our emotions, basically. So let me just refine that thought of we're not a victim to circumstance. We're a victim to our emotions about the circumstance. We are a victim. I was a victim. Can you relate? Are you a victim to your emotions? Are you a victim to the outside triggers? What triggers you? What triggers you? What causes a punch in the gut? What boils your blood? What boils your blood? There's different levels of triggers, but talk about the window of tolerance. I think it's Dan Siegel. Dan Siegel talks about the window of tolerance. Is your window of tolerance this big, meaning you can't handle much? It doesn't take a lot for you to snap and lose it, flip your lid? Or is your window of tolerance big? You can handle a lot. Nothing really phases you. That's the goal. That's my goal. But once we are hyper aroused out of the window of tolerance, we just lose our poo. Or when we're hypo aroused, we just shut down. We can't handle it. I just can't hang. It's because our window of tolerance is this big. I'll do a little segment on that, on the window of tolerance. It's really powerful. But this reading today, taken to you this week, happy Monday, of what is your attitude? What is your attitude about the things you want in life? What is your attitude about the circumstances? How do you approach when things aren't going your way? Are you a victim to your emotions? Are you pulled here, pulled there by how you feel? The whole point, my whole point of life is to strengthen my muscle of emotional regulation, being the master of my emotions, knowing myself. It always goes back to that. This weekend I love everything, personal development and psychology. That's really my jam, and that's what I teach. I'm a therapist too. And so thinking, God, it's like drinking water from a fire hose. There's so much information. There's so many schools of thought. There's so many philosophies. There's so many theories. There's so many people who are successful, but they have, do it this way. No, do it this way. Well, you should do it this way. You must do this. You should do this. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm just so overwhelmed. And then I just get this feeling in my stomach like, well, what's the point? Why do we do any of it? Who's right? Who's wrong? People argue. You're an idiot. Look at those stupid people doing it this way. Look at those crazy people doing it this way. But what came to me when I took a breath was, everybody's right. If it works for them, if it works for you, good. It doesn't make anybody else wrong. Just because you're right doesn't make anybody else wrong. Because what's true for you is true for you. What's true for someone else is true for someone else. So there's no point in competing for what way is better. But back to the truth is, it all goes back to you. Know yourself. To know yourself means knowing what works for you, what resonates with you. Know thyself, and you shall know the universe and all the gods. Study yourself. Know yourself. Then you can adapt someone's theory or someone's way of being or some philosophy. But it goes back, it's just like religion. It doesn't matter which one you take in personal development, in manifesting, in whatever it is. It doesn't matter which route, which teacher, which coach you study, but it has to resonate and feel good to you. And to know that, you have to know yourself. Have a wonderful day. I will see you tomorrow.